Okay, picture this. What if I told you there's a developer out there who, like, barely even opens their normal coding tools anymore?
Interesting premise.
Right. Someone who's really leaning into AI, making it their main thing, building stuff in minutes that, used to take them hours.
Okay, I'm listening.
So today, we're not just going to scratch the surface. We're doing a real deep dive into the techniques this developer figured out. Some are kind of controversial, actually.
Battle-tested stuff, not just theory.
Exactly. And I'm really curious to unpack these patterns because, honestly, they kind of redefine what coding even is now.
Well, welcome everyone to the deep dive. This is where we really get into how AI is fundamentally changing software development.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this really fascinating case study today. A developer who kept meticulous notes, really documented their whole journey with Claude Code.
So what's the mission here? What are we trying to pull out of this?
Our mission, really, is to dig into the practical patterns that genuinely work. We're talking everything from, like, why starting fresh conversations is way more important than people think, to this thing they call YOLO mode for getting max productivity.
YOLO mode. Sounds dangerous.
It can be,
Yeah.
but maybe effective. We'll also get into some advanced stuff like multi-agent setups, how to prompt really precisely, and, why just asking the AI to do one big thing usually just fails.
Right, the one-shot problem.
Exactly. So think of this as a deep dive into the messy but practical reality of using AI day to day. By the end, you should have a much better toolkit for really boosting your own AI code again.
All right, so let's shift from the big picture to the actual daily grind of using these tools, and maybe the most counterintuitive thing that came out of this developer's experience.
Let me guess. The clear command.
You got it.
Yeah.
The idea that you should probably be using clear way more often than feels natural. Most people, myself included probably, treat these AI chats like talking to a human, right? Where the context just builds up.
Yeah, that's the default assumption. But it turns out AI agents can get, well, weird, unpredictable, especially when the chat gets long or you start asking about totally different things.
So what's the actual mechanism there? Why does it get weird?
Well, our developer, they found that starting new threads really often, even if it meant, repeating some instructions, actually gave much better results. You're not talking to your colleague who remembers the whole project history.
Right.
You're talking to, and this is their perfect description, a new grad with amnesia.
Okay, that paints a picture.
It really does,
Yeah.
because it highlights this core thing. AI models have this limited working memory. Their attention can get muddled by old, irrelevant stuff in the chat history.
So clear isn't just wiping the slate clean.
No, it's more like giving the AI the absolute best shot at focusing only on the problem you're giving it right now, resetting that limited memory, getting rid of the noise.
That new grad with amnesia thing is going to stick with me. But, okay, devil's advocate here. If you're deep in a problem, doesn't clearing too much risk, losing useful context, breaking your flow. How do you find that balance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's definitely a balance. The pattern that seems to work is keep the conversation going for tasks that are really tightly connected.
Like debugging one specific piece of code?
Exactly. Or iterating on a UI design element. In those cases, the immediate history is valuable, but the moment you switch gears to a different problem domain, or, and this is key, when the AI's answers start getting inconsistent or just plain weird.
That's the trigger.
That's your cue.
Yeah.
Get clear. Don't hesitate. It's about spotting when that built-up context starts being more of a problem than a help.
Makes sense. Recognizing the point of diminishing returns for context.
Okay, and related to clarity.
Yeah.
What about the prompts themselves? Getting the instructions right?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. We saw this really clearly. Prompt precision matters, like exponentially more with AI than with people. Because people can infer, right? We fill in the blanks.
Exactly. We use intuition, shared knowledge, AI. It needs the details. Every relevant bit spelled out. Think about the difference, right? You say, create a modern design.
Okay, super vague.
Totally. What does the AI do with that? Versus saying, okay, create a UI design like the Linear app. Use clean typography, a minimal color palette, make it card-based.
Ah, okay. Much more concrete.
It's a night and day difference in the quality of what you get back, really.
That focus on precision is definitely key. But what if, maybe early on, you don't actually know all those details yourself? Your own idea is still forming. How do you prompt then?
That's a really good point. And yeah, that happens all the time. In that situation, it's less about crafting one perfect, detailed prompt up front.
So what do you do instead?
It becomes more of an iterative discovering process. You might start broader, like, hey, explore some common design patterns for, a modern web dashboard.
Yeah.
Then you look at what it gives you. You react. You say, okay, I like this part, but not that. Or what if we tried adding X? Or how would this look if it felt more like, say, Notion?
Ah, so you're using the AI to help you figure out what you want.
Exactly. It's a collaboration, a conversation with discovery, not just giving orders. You're using the AI almost like a sounding board to clarify your own thinking.
That's a great way to put it, a sounding board. So maybe ask yourself, listener, when you're talking to AI, are you giving it enough to work with? Or are you kind of expecting it to read your mind? Definitely something to think about. Okay, so precise prompts for focused tasks, iterative discovery when things are fuzzy, that handles single interactions well. But what about really complex problems, things that need, I don't know, multiple viewpoints? Can one AI even handle that?
Now we're getting into something truly transformative. This is where the idea of using Claude Code, not just as one AI, but as a kind of multi-agent system comes in. It's a feature most people don't even realize is there.
Multi-agent. Okay, explain that. How does that work?
So the genius here is that Claude Code actually exposes some of its internal machinery. They call it the metacognitive protocol, or MCP.
MCP.
Think of it like the AI's own internal OS. And part of that OS is this powerful task tool. And this tool can actually spawn like specialized sub-agents, mini AIs almost.
Whoa. Okay, so you can tell the main AI to create other AIs to help it.
Pretty much. It's a game changer for problems that are just too big or multifaceted for one agent to tackle effectively. Problems where you want different focused perspectives.
All right, give me a real-world example. How did the developer actually use this?
Okay, a really cool example we saw was analyzing Tailwind components. Complex UI stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of just asking for one big analysis, which might be shallow,
Right.
they spawned 4 specialized subtasks using this task tool. One was a design color expert, another focused purely on accessibility, a third looked only at mobile responsiveness, and the last one was an overall style guru.
Wow. Okay, like a little committee of experts.
Exactly. And the magic is, first, parallel processing, they all run at the same time. Second, clean context. Each subagent has its own focus, its own token budget or processing capacity, so it can go deep without getting confused by the others.
And then they report back.
Yep. They each do their deep analysis and report their specialized findings back to the main agent, which then synthesizes it all into a complete picture.
That is fascinating. So it's not just getting different opinions, it's keeping the main AI's focus sharp while enabling these like deep dives in parallel. What other kinds of things could you use this for?
Oh, the possibilities are huge. Think about a big code architecture review. You could spin up experts for security, performance, maintainability, have them all look at the code simultaneously.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Or designing a new API, get a back-end expert, a front-end expert, maybe even a documentation specialist subagent. Database schema, performance, security, scaling experts.
Like anything where you need different kinds of expertise without muddying the waters.
Precisely. The key is that each one stays in its lane, does its job, and reports back. Clean separation of concerns, but for AI agents.
And how capable are these subagents? Can they just analyze or can they do more?
They can do more. This is another critical point. You can actually task subagents with doing research.
Research, like go look things up.
Yeah. Tell one subagent, go deep dive the latest documentation for Framework X, while another analyzes your current code that uses Framework X. Then, the main agent brings those findings together to figure out the best way to update or implement something.
That's powerful, combining analysis with like real-time knowledge acquisition.
It is, but there's a catch, or rather a technique you need to use. Our developer really stressed this. You have to tell Claude to ultra-think when it's planning these multi-agent tasks.
Ultra-think, what does that mean?
It means push it beyond the minimum. See, AI models, kind of like people sometimes, often take the path of least resistance. If you ask for at least 3 options, you'll probably get exactly 3.
Ah, the literal interpretation trap.
Right, so you have to explicitly say ultra-think, or generate comprehensive options, or consider edge cases. You need to nudge it to go beyond the default effort level to really explore the problem space thoroughly, especially in that planning phase.
So you have to manage its effort level, basically. Tell it to try harder. Interesting. Okay, thinking about this, how could orchestrating these kinds of multi-agent workflows really change how you tackle complex coding problems? Feels like a whole new layer of strategy.
Yeah.
All right, let's zoom back in a bit. We've talked big picture, AI psychology, multi-agent setups. Now let's get into the real nitty-gritty, the power user techniques, the small things that, add up to big productivity boosts.
Yeah, the tips and tricks.
First one, message editing and forking conversations. I gather most people don't know you can hit escape twice to go back and edit an earlier prompt.
It's surprisingly hidden, but yeah, escape.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly powerful.
Why that's a big deal?
Because it lets you tweak things without starting over. You send a prompt, look at the result, and think, not quite. Instead of typing a whole new correction, you just pop back, change a word or two in your original prompt, and hit enter again.
So you can quickly iterate on the prompt itself.
Exactly. Or you can explore different paths, make a small change, see where that leads, go back, make a different small change, see where that leads. You're essentially creating branches in your conversation, like Git branches, but for your AI interaction. It's super efficient for exploring alternatives.
Okay, that's a cool one. Now, for something that sounds riskier, this YOLO mode. The developer runs Claude with dangerously skipped permissions for long tasks. Okay, talk me through this. What exactly does that do, and what are the obvious dangers?
Right. So dangerously skip permissions. The name itself is a warning sign. What it does is tell Claude, don't stop and ask me for permission before you modify a file or run a command. Just do it.
Whoa. Okay, so it just plows ahead.
It plows ahead. The upside is, for really long, complex tasks, think big refactoring, migrations, it avoids those constant interruptions where you have to type yes or no. It keeps the flow going, which can be a massive speed boost.
But the downside, you could just delete your whole project, right? Or run some crazy command.
Absolutely. The potential for disaster is real. This is not something you do without serious safety nets. This developer, they made it very clear this only works if you have rock-solid backup systems.
Okay, backups are crucial. What else?
And equally important, aggressive staging. They are constantly using git add to stage changes frequently. Think of it like hitting the save point in a video game every few minutes if the AI goes off the rails.
You can easily revert to the last known good state.
Precisely. Frequent staging is non-negotiable in YOLO mode. Plus, robust version control in general may be working in isolated branches or environments. You need layers of protection. It requires trust, but mostly trust in your own safety practices.
Okay, so git add becomes your lifeline. That makes sense. And related to Git, you mentioned Git work trees. How do they fit in?
Yeah, Git work trees. Another power user move. They let you have multiple working directories, like multiple folders on your computer, all linked to the same Git repository, but potentially checked out to different branches.
So you could have Claude working on feature A in one directory,
while you have it working on bug fix B in another directory simultaneously without them interfering with each other. No need to constantly stash changes or switch branches in a single directory. It just streamlines working on multiple things in parallel, especially with an AI assistant involved. It's about optimizing the whole environment around the AI.
Neat. Okay, shifting gears slightly. Voice input. You mentioned this was surprisingly effective. I type pretty fast. Is voice really faster?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for longer, more complex prompts where you're really explaining something. Tools like Super Whisper, that's one the developer used. It's an AI transcription tool. They let you just dictate your thoughts.
And the AI understands it well enough, even if the transcription isn't perfect.
That's the surprising part, yes. These AI models are actually really good at understanding intent, even from slightly messy or imperfect speech to text. You don't have to speak like a robot. It often feels more natural and faster for just getting complex ideas out of your head and into the prompt box.
Interesting. I might have to try that. And finally, automation using the SDK.
Right, the software development kit. This opens the door to scripting Claude, basically. The example given was a simple script called Gitcado.
What did it do?
It looked at the currently staged changes in Git def staged, and automatically generated a commit message summarizing those changes.
Oh, that's handy. Saves writing those messages manually.
Exactly. It's a small thing, right? A quality of life improvement. But when you start building these little AI-powered automations for your own repetitive tasks, they really add up. They save time, sure, but also mental energy.
Definitely. So, okay, listener, think about your own workflow right now. What's the biggest point of friction? That one annoying thing you do over and over. Could one of these techniques, message editing, maybe even careful YOLO mode with staging, voice input, or a small automation, could it smooth that out? Turn that headache into something easier. Okay, we've covered workflow tweaks. Let's talk about a bigger shift. how AI changes the way we learn and research as developers. This was another huge insight from the case study.
Yeah, this one's really fundamental. It's the idea of making Claude read the manual first.
Read the manual first, meaning.
Meaning, don't just rely on the knowledge baked into the AI model from its training data, which might be months or even years old. That's especially dangerous for things like front-end frameworks that change constantly.
Right, the JavaScript ecosystem moves at light speed.
Exactly. So instead of asking, say, how do I set up a new Svelte kit project?
Yep.
And just hoping the AI's info is up to date.
You do what?
The winning pattern is ask Claude to research the current best practices first. Go find the latest official docs, read recent tutorials, understand the state of the art now, and then, based on that fresh research, ask it to help you implement it.
Ah, so you're turning the AI from a static encyclopedia into a live research assistant.
Precisely. You're leveraging its ability to process information quickly, but directing it to the right current information sources before it starts generating code. It's a massive difference in output quality and accuracy, especially for fast-moving tech.
That makes a ton of sense. So practically, how do you tell Claude to do this? What are the ways to get it researching effectively?
There are basically 3 good approaches that came up. First, the direct route. Find the official documentation link yourself, paste it into the chat, and explicitly say, read this documentation and then tell me how to do X.
Okay, pointing it directly at the source.
Second, you can be a bit broader. Ask it to find the current best practices. Research the standard way to handle authentication in Next.js 14, for example. It'll essentially go out, search, and synthesize for you.
Like a super-powered search engine query.
Kind of, yeah. And third, for really deep dives, you use that multi-agent task tool we talked about earlier. Assign a subagent specifically to do a comprehensive investigation on a topic.
Gotcha. And you saw this work well in practice.
Oh, yeah. The Tailwind V3 to V4 migration example was perfect. Instead of relying on potentially outdated blog posts the AI might have been trained on, they tasked it with researching the current migration strategies.
And what did it find?
It came back with the official migration guide summary, links to automated tooling people had built, specific common pitfalls or gotchas to watch out for. Basically, everything needed for a smooth migration based on up-to-the-minute info. Saved potentially hours of debugging outdated advice.
Wow. That really does change the game for staying current. So this turns the AI into your personal knowledge navigator. How does that change how we should think about learning new things as developers?
It's incredibly versatile, right? This research-first approach works for learning a whole new framework, understanding breaking changes in an API you use, exploring different architectural patterns, investigating performance tuning techniques, anything where current knowledge is key.
It's like having an expert tutor on call.
Pretty much. A tutor who can read really, really fast. And related to this, there's also planning mode. If you hit Shift plus Tab twice, Claude enters a mode where it won't actually change files.
Oh, what's that good for?
It's great for exactly this kind of thing. You can ask it to research and then just outline the steps, think through the strategy, discuss potential problems, all without it actually touching your code yet. Some people even use different AI models for planning versus implementation, maybe a more analytical model for the thinking part.
So you get to think before it acts, separating the research and planning from the doing.
Exactly. And if you zoom out, the meta insight here is, by teaching Claude how to research effectively for your specific context, you make it a much, much better collaborator. You're not just prompting for code anymore. You're becoming more like an AI research coordinator.
An AI research coordinator. I
Yeah.
like that. You're directing the intelligence gathering before you direct the action.
Yep. You guide it to the latest and most relevant info, which makes its final output way more likely to be correct and useful.
This is huge for keeping up. Think about how often you search online for how to do something, sift through 5 different blog posts, and realize half of them are outdated. Imagine the AI doing that initial filtering and synthesis for you. That's a serious time saver. Okay, we've hit on workflow hacks, research strategies. Now let's address maybe the biggest lesson learned from this whole experiment, iteration. Why do those big, ambitious one-shot prompts usually fail?
Ah, yes. The siren song of the perfect prompt. This was a major learning curve for the developer. Their initial instinct, like many people's, was to craft this incredibly detailed, perfect prompt to handle a large task, like a big code migration.
Did it work?
Failed, spectacularly. The AI generated a massive amount of changes all at once. It was overwhelming, impossible to review effectively, and full of subtle errors that were hard to untangle. Just too much, too fast.
Okay, so the all-in-one approach bombed. What did work then? What was the successful alternative?
It was radically different. Instead of starting with a giant command, they started with questions, discussion, building understanding through conversation first.
Like we talked about earlier, that iterative discovery.
Exactly, but applied to implementation too. They'd discuss the approach, maybe have the AI outline steps, then they'd implement incrementally. Migrate one component, check it, then maybe two more, check them, then 5. Scale up gradually.
Baby steps. Build, test, build, test.
Precisely. It turns out effective AI collaboration is much less about crafting that single magical prompt and much more about creating effective feedback loops.
Feedback loops. Okay, tell me more about that. What does good feedback look like in this context?
Well, that's the tricky part. The developer found that purely autonomous feedback, like just feeding the AI unit test failures or linter errors, often wasn't that helpful on its own.
Why not? Isn't that direct feedback?
It is, but it often just fills up the context window without giving the AI clear signals on why something failed or how to fix it strategically. They found that human-in-the-loop feedback was generally much more effective for course correction.
Okay, so what are some practical ways to give good human feedback?
Several things worked well. 1, keep your local development server running. See the changes visually, immediately. If something looks wrong, you catch it fast.
Instant visual feedback. Makes sense.
2, copy-paste the exact error message and stack trace into the chat. Don't paraphrase. Give it the raw data. 3, give specific directional hints. Not just that's wrong, but try adjusting the padding here. Or maybe the issue is in this lifecycle hook. Guide it.
More directive.
And 4, maybe most importantly, interrupt early. As soon as you see the AI starting to go down the wrong path, hit escape to stop it. Don't let it generate pages of wrong code. Course correct immediately before the errors compound.
Catch mistakes early. That sounds crucial.
It really is. And an advanced technique related to this is having a really quick way to revert the AI's last set of changes if they were bad, maybe a git alias or a script, so you can immediately roll back and give it new corrective guidance. Fast recovery is key.
Okay, so it's a constant cycle.
Yeah.
Small step,
Yeah.
observe, feedback correct, next small step.
Exactly. And this is where integrating the AI with your tools really shines. Setting up the terminal properly, terminal setup, so Claude can interact smoothly, connecting it to your IDE so it can see linter warnings and be aware of your project files. These integrations amplify all these feedback patterns.
Right, the tools make the loop tighter.
Totally. So the key takeaway here really is that effective AI development isn't just prompt engineering. It's more like workflow engineering. Designing these collaborative patterns between human and AI that maximize both the automation and your control over the process.
Workflow engineering. I like that. So for you listening, think about your own projects. Have you tried the big one-shot approach and been disappointed? Where could introducing more iteration, more feedback loops give you better results? Where are the wins for you?
All right, we've covered tactics, strategies, mindset shifts, but let's talk about maybe the most exciting outcome of all this, the sheer creativity it unlocks. What happens when the cost of writing kind of basically drops to near zero?
Yeah, this is where it gets really fun. The economics of creating software have just fundamentally shifted. That little idea you had, that tool that would be nice but wasn't really worth the effort to build.
Suddenly, it is worth it. It absolutely is. When code is cheap and fast to generate, the threshold for justifying building something just collapses. You can solve immediate specific problems for yourself without worrying about, long-term maintenance of some huge system.
So it's not just about doing existing tasks faster.
No, it's about enabling entirely new types of software. The developer called them ephemeral tools.
Ephemeral tools, meaning?
Purpose-built solutions for specific, often temporary problems, things you'd never have dedicated serious dev time to before.
Okay, give me some examples. What kind of things did this developer build that fall into this category?
All sorts of stuff. A custom dashboard just to visualize data for a one-off migration analysis. A little Chrome extension just to check the Tailwind version on websites they visited. A tool for sharing transcripts easily. A command line interface for analyzing cloud costs for a specific project. They even prototyped experimental Electron apps just to see if an idea worked.
Wow, things you'd normally just live without or do manually.
Exactly. Think about custom data visualizations for a report you only need once. Or super specialized tools for a tricky refactor you only do this one time. Prototype UIs just to explore an idea quickly. Little automation scripts for your personal workflow annoyances. Testing harnesses for very specific edge cases.
So the pattern here is what? Just Build whatever you need right when you need it.
That's basically it. It's like just-in-time software development. Instead of spending ages searching for an existing tool that kind of fits, or just doing the task manually because building was too costly, you just generate exactly what you need right now. And if you don't need it tomorrow, no big deal. It was cheap to make.
That is a massive mental shift. From finding the right tool to just creating the right tool on the fly. How far does this go?
Well, it leads to other cool things. If you find yourself generating similar types of ephemeral tools often, you can create custom/commands for Claude, like generate migration dashboard or analyze log file. It streamlines the generation of your common one-offs.
Automating the automation generation.
Pretty much. And then you add things like visual integration, pasting a screenshot into Claude and saying, make this button bigger or fix the alignment here. And you open up even more rapid, intuitive ways to build and refine these quick tools, especially UIs.
Okay, the big picture implication here feels huge.
It really is. The meta shift is we're moving away from a world where developers primarily consume existing software libraries and tools towards a world where we increasingly generate software solutions as needed.
So developers become what?
Less like solo instrument players painstakingly crafting every note, and more like conductors of AI orchestras, directing these powerful agents to create symphonies of purpose-built, just-in-time tools.
Conductors of AI orchestras. That's a powerful image. It's an exciting, maybe slightly daunting future.
Definitely exciting. So here's a question for everyone listening. What's that one nagging, maybe small problem you've been manually working around? That thing you always wish there was a tool for? If code was essentially free to generate, what ephemeral tool would you build right now to solve it? What just-in-time software could make your life easier, maybe just for today or this week?
That's a great challenge. If this deep dive has sparked some ideas, if it changes how you approach AI-assisted development even a little bit, we want to hear about it. But more importantly, try something. Your challenge for this week. Pick just one technique we talked about.
Just one.
Maybe it's being more aggressive with Clear. Maybe it's trying that multi-agent task tool for a complex analysis. Or maybe it's finally building that little ephemeral tool you just thought of. Pick one, try it out in your real work, and just see what happens. Measure the difference.
Yeah, get your hands dirty. Because here's the main thing we hope you take away from this entire deep dive. Getting good at AI coding, like really good.
Yeah.
It's not ultimately just about writing slightly better prompts.
It's bigger than that.
It's about designing better workflows for collaborating between you and the AI, the developers who are going to absolutely crush it in the coming years. They won't just be prompt wizards. They'll be the ones who can orchestrate these AI agents effectively.
A conductor.
Exactly. The ones who design smart feedback loops, who know when to iterate, when to research first, and who embrace building these just-in-time solutions for whatever problem is right in front of them.
We really are seeing a fundamental shift, aren't we? The core question is changing. It's less, how do I code this specific thing?
Yeah.
And becoming more, how do I coordinate all this available intelligence to solve this problem?
That's the heart of it.
The future belongs to those who can conduct the AI orchestras, not just the ones playing solo. Lots to think about there.